September 1944, in a muddy orchard outside Nancy, France, a black American rifle company opened its morning ration crate and found the same thing waiting inside, not breakfast. Evidence: the cans were swollen at the seams. Green paint flaked off under a private's thumb. When the opener bit into the lid, the metal sighed like something alive. Then the smell came out: sour meat, rust, hot grease gone bad. One soldier stepped away and vomited behind a wheel rut. Another just stared at the can in his hands, because this was the fourth crate that week, and every crate carried the same grease. Pencil mark from the Quartermaster Depot B yard. By noon, 14 men were bent double with cramps and fever. By evening, 3 were too weak to stand formation. And First Sergeant Marcus Bell knew the worst part. Somebody had not made a mistake. Somebody had built a system. Bell was 41, broad-shouldered, quiet, and hard to impress. Before the Army, he had worked the night shift at a rail yard in Baltimore, where a man learned fast that a misplaced number on a manifest could break a whole day's labor. In France, he carried that habit into war. He wrote everything down: lot numbers, delivery dates, condition of tins, sick call names, which crate came from which truck, which depot stamp appeared on which label. His notebook was not dramatic. It had no speeches in it. It had proof. And proof was the only weapon he trusted against a man who could smile while starving soldiers. The Quartermaster Depot sat 5 miles behind the line, where canvas sheds, fuel barrels, and ration stacks crowded a torn stretch of French farm road. Trucks came through all day. Ammunition went one way. Fuel went another. Food moved wherever the depot said it moved. And Tech Sergeant Vernon Pike controlled the ration yard. Pike kept his boots polished even in mud season. His desk was square to the tent pole. His pencils were sharpened to the same length. He liked the clean look of order, but his order had a back fence. Near the rear of the depot, behind a leaning row of tar paper and salvage crates, Pike kept the stock he called rear issue. Everyone else called it the dead pile: dented cans, heat, baked meat, water, damaged cartons, labels loose from damp, crates that should have been inspected, condemned, or buried. Instead, Pike's clerks marked them for black units. Not in writing, not in a regulation, just in the small private language of prejudice: a grease, pencil B, a separate stack, a clipboard turned face down when Bell walked in. The white companies in the same sector were getting coffee, jam, hard bread, and canned beef that still smelled like food. Bell's men were getting metal that hissed when opened. So Bell came to the depot with his notebook under his arm and 2 medical slips folded inside his field jacket. Pike did not stand when he entered. "You're early," Pike said. Bell placed 1 ration can on the desk. The bottom bulged outward like a blister. "My company has received condemned stock for 22 days, Bell said. 14 men are on sick call. 3 cannot march. This can came from your yard this morning." Pike glanced at it as if Bell had brought him a dirty boot. "Supply is tight all over 3rd Army." Bell opened the notebook, then explained the lot numbers. Pike's face changed by 1 inch, not fear, irritation. Bell read from the page. Lot 719. Lot 719 again. Lot 722. Lot 722 again. Same rear stamp, same depot grease mark, same spoilage pattern. Meanwhile, the 118th Service Company drew fresh cartons from a stack yesterday. So did the field artillery mess on Route 6. Pike leaned back. "You've been watching my yard. I've been watching my men fall sick. That's field life, Sergeant. No, Bell said. Field life is cold rain and German shells. This is paperwork with a stink on it. For the first time, Pike smiled. You people always think somebody owes you better. The tent went quiet. Bell looked at him for a long moment, then took the 2 medical slips from his jacket and laid them beside the can. Say that again with the surgeon's signature under it. Pike's smile thinned. You get what gets assigned. Assigned by whom? By the yard. And who runs the yard? Pike picked up his pencil and tapped it twice on the ledger. I do. There it was. Not enough for a court by itself. Enough for Bell to know where to push. He lifted the spoiled can from Pike's desk and put it back into his musette bag. Pike said, Walk out now, and this stays a supply complaint. Bell stopped at the tent flap. It stopped being a complaint when my men started bleeding through their blankets. Then he walked straight to the chaplain's tent. Not because he expected a prayer to fix a depot, because chaplains knew how to get heard when ordinary channels turned deaf. By dusk, Bell's notebook sat under a lantern in front of a chaplain, a battalion surgeon, and a captain from the Inspector General's office. The surgeon had seen the men himself. The chaplain had watched a corporal try to drink water without keeping it down. Captain had the one thing Pike did not expect anyone to assemble in wartime chaos. A pattern, same yard, same mark, same units, same sickness, not shortage. Selection. The report moved faster than Pike believed possible. At 0710 the next morning, a jeep rolled through the depot gate with 2 motorcycles ahead of it, and mud slashing both fenders. Men stopped loading crates. Clerks stopped counting cartons. Even the truck engines seemed to lower their voices. Major General Walton Reeves stepped out wearing a wet tanker jacket, and the expression of a man who had been interrupted from something more important. That was Pike's first mistake. He thought the general had come to hear both sides. Reeves had already read the notebook. He walked past the fuel drums, past the neat, a stack, past the clean cartons under canvas. Then he stopped at the rear fence, where Bell's company ration crate sat half, hidden under a torn tarp. Reeves pulled the tarp back himself. The smell rose at once. No one spoke. The general picked up one bloated can with 2 fingers and carried it to Pike's desk. Open it, Reeves said. Pike swallowed. Sir, that stock is under review. Open it. The field opener scraped once across the lid. Pike's hand jerked back as the stink filled the tent. Reeves looked at the can, then at Pike. Would you feed this to a mule? Pike said nothing. That was not a rhetorical question. No, sir. Would you feed it to German prisoners? No, sir. Reeves stepped closer. Then explain why American soldiers were expected to fight on it. Pike tried the word that had saved cowards in every army since the first supply cart got lost. Confusion, sir. Bell stood outside the tent, still as a post. Reeves opened Bell's notebook and turned it so Pike could see the pages. Confusion does not repeat the same lot numbers for 3 weeks. Confusion does not send clean stock to one mess line and poison to another. Confusion does not learn to write the letter B on every crate it wants hidden. The tent held its breath. Pike's collar had gone dark with sweat. Reeves closed the notebook. You used the war as camouflage for your own contempt. Nobody moved. Then the general pointed to the rear yard. Every spoiled crate comes out now. Not this afternoon. Now every fresh ration in protected reserve is transferred to the affected company under guard. The surgeon inspects before issue. The inspector general seizes every ledger on this desk. Pike opened his mouth. Reeves cut him off. and you are relieved of this yard." The words landed harder than shouting. Pike's hands fell from the desk. Two military policemen stepped into the tent. The clean world he had built for himself came apart in the most ordinary way possible. Clipboards collected, keys removed, sidearm taken, name entered on a charge sheet. No speech, no mercy, just procedure. That was the part Pike had forgotten. The army could be cruel. It could be slow. It could fail the men who needed it most. But when a man turned prejudice into a supply method and left a paper trail behind him, the same machine he had used could close around his wrists. For the next 6 hours, the depot changed shape. The rear fence came down. Rotten crates were dragged into daylight. Inspectors split cartons open with pocket knives. Cans were sorted into piles: usable, suspect, condemned. The condemned pile grew so high, it cast a shadow over Pike's polished boots. Bell's men watched from the road, wrapped in blankets, hollow-eyed from sickness. They did not cheer. They were too tired for theater. Then the first fresh crates arrived: real coffee, unswollen tins, bread that did not smell of rust, canned peaches that made one private close his eyes before he took the first spoonful. A mess sergeant set a tray in front of Corporal Ellis, who had not eaten solid food in 2 days. Ellis looked at Bell and said, "First Sergeant, is this for us?" Bell answered, "It has your name on it." That was all. No speech could have fed them better. By nightfall, Pike was gone from the depot. The ledgers went with the Inspector General. The B-yard mark disappeared from every active ration card before the week was out. A surgeon's inspection stamp became mandatory on any damaged stock before issue. It did not fix the army. It did not erase segregation. It did not make every commander fair. It did not turn prejudice into shame overnight. But it did something smaller and harder to fake. It made one hidden system visible, and once visible, it could be broken. Marcus Bell kept the notebook until the war ended. Men said he wrapped it in oilcloth and carried it through rain, shell dust, and winter roads, even after the pages grew soft at the edges. He never called it courage. He called it counting, because counting was how he proved that neglect had a pattern. Counting was how he proved the pattern had a hand behind it. And counting was how 14 sick men became more than a rumor in a muddy orchard. The rotten cans were supposed to disappear into hungry stomachs and silence. Instead, they became evidence. And by sundown, the men who had been handed the dead pile were eating food fit for soldiers. The depot learned that prejudice was not a rationing system. It was a confession with a label on it.